Hey guys, this is Josh here from Trillium Wild Edibles, and today I want to bring you all an identification video on Solomon seal. This really cool plant that we can see with these kind of greenish yellow flower buds kind of hanging down from the underside of the plant is known as Solomon seal. This is an extremely awesome plant and it can be extremely prolific in some moist woodland areas. Now all throughout the spring and summer months, whenever you're walking in moist woodlands, you're probably going to notice this sort of arching, sort of drooping plant with these sort of ladder growth pattern on these leaves. This is known as Solomon seal. There is another plant called false Solomon seal that looks very similar. However, there is a couple ways to tell them apart, and we are going to cover that here in just a couple of minutes. Whenever you look at the leaves of Solomon seal, a couple things that we're going to notice is not only their very distinct growth pattern, how they kind of look almost like a ladder going up the stem, but we're also going to notice that they are somewhat egg-shaped and they do have smooth margins. Now whenever we look at the underside of our leaves of Solomon seal, we are going to notice that they are somewhat lighter green in appearance than the top of the leaves. Whenever we're looking for the growth form of the leaves, we are going to notice that the leaves will alternate going down the stem like we can see here on these leaves, how they alternate on different sides going all the way down the stem. If we look very, very closely where the leaf meets the stem on Solomon seal, we're going to notice that the leaves actually clasp around the stem of this plant. Now some plants you're going to notice somewhat of a petiole or leaf stem, and some you're going to notice this clasping structure like we can see here. Another thing that we're going to notice when it comes to Solomon seal is the very unique growth form of its flowers. If we actually lift the plant up, whenever we look at the underside of Solomon seal, we're going to notice that it does have these kind of yellowish greenish flower buds coming out from the bottom. Now this is important to differentiate this plant from false Solomon seal, because on false Solomon seal, its flowers will actually be coming out of the end of the plant right here instead of from the underside. Whenever we're looking at the underside of these greenish to yellow flowers, we're going to notice that they're somewhat tube-shaped in appearance, kind of like this, and they kind of look like a star on the end of them. And if we look on the inside, we're going to notice it looks somewhat like a tire that you would see on a vehicle. So it kind of looks like spokes on a rim or a wheel of a vehicle. Very, very unique flower structure of this plant. Now there are several varieties of Solomon seal that you're probably going to be finding. Some of them are going to be around 2 to 3 feet in length, like we can see on this one here is about 2 to 3 feet in length. Some of them, like the giant Solomon seal, can actually get up to around 5 to 6 feet in length or height. So make sure you keep in mind that based upon the size is going to determine what variety of Solomon seal specifically that you are looking at. Now the root of this plant is edible, and I actually have a video on how to harvest the root of Solomon seal. So I will link that in the description video below. I will also throw a picture up, probably here or here somewhere, of the root so you guys can get an idea of what its root looks like, and I will discuss the root with that photograph. So here we can see a picture of the root of Solomon seal. Now this root is rather small and narrow, and that's mainly because this came from a smaller variety of Solomon seal, a much shorter variety than the one that we are looking at in the video today. But this goes to show you guys the different varieties that you can find. And now, while this root is rather narrow, it is still usable in the same ways. But if we look very, very closely on this root, we're going to notice that right here is a circular seal, and we can see these kind of bulb-like growths going down, and inside each one of these is going to be a circular seal. This is actually where this plant gets its name, and another interesting fact about this structure on this root or rhizome is actually that represents, each one of those represents 1 year of growth of the plant. So if you dig up a root of Solomon seal and you count 15 of these circular seals and bulb-like growths, that plant has been growing for 15 years. Solomon seal can grow for an incredibly long time, and some species, like the giant Solomon seal, can get roots or rhizomes that are about as big as a sweet potato, but they can be anywhere from 2 to 4 feet in length, some cases even longer. So this plant does have some very big roots in some cases, and sometimes it has very small, narrow roots like we can see here. Now this plant is edible. The root of this plant is what you want to use, and you want to use it somewhat like a potato. So you basically just would dig up the root, and then you would chop it and then boil it until it becomes tender. Now the liquid after you've done that can actually be used as a tea to help treat rheumatism pain. So this plant does have a few uses. However, I personally recommend you do not dig up this plant because it is extremely slow growing. But that's how you guys can identify Solomon seal. I thank all of you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. If you want to learn more about wild edibles or medicinal plants, please make sure to subscribe.